Hi guys, I'm going to go ahead and read to you our script for our composer this week. We have Antoine Dvorak, okay, and I went ahead and I attached a picture of the map, the listening map, both the picture one as well as this one. And I don't know if you guys got my video from last week. I don't think the link attached to the email, but if you go onto the YouTube channel, you'll be able to actually see the orchestra and science video from last week too. Okay, so Dvorak's life. Anton Dvorak was born near Prague in the Austrian Empire about 180 years ago. That's about 10 years after last week's composer, Brahms, was born. He was the first of 9 children. His father was an innkeeper and a butcher who dreamed that someday he would hand the family business to Antoine, his oldest son. After all, the family business was handed down to him by his father, who had inherited the family business from his father, and so on and so on. So do you think Anton would grow up to be a butcher, like so many other men in his family tree? Well, he tried. Antoine tried to learn how to be a butcher. He would visit local markets in the neighborhood. He and his father would select livestock together. He had good days and bad days. His worst day was probably when he was in charge of leading one wild cow home from the village fair on a rope. I don't think the cow liked this idea because it ended up dragging poor Antoine into a lake. "I'll never be a butcher," he vowed in a flood of tears. Luckily for Antoine, and perhaps for also the cows, he was able to cultivate a different family talent, music. Antoine's father was also a professional musician. On the side, he played an unusual instrument called a zither. Can we all say zither? Fun word. A zither is not an easy instrument to play. And the Dvorak family, they loved playing music to help brighten up their daily routine. They wouldn't have dreamed of making a career out of it, but soon they realized things would be different for Antoine. Antoine quickly mastered the violin. Friends and family would ask him to entertain guests at the village dances. Next thing you know, even the church was asking him to come play his violin, even though he was just a young boy. How cool was that? At the age of 12, he wrote his first songs or compositions. Can you imagine how excited he was when he got to move to the big city and attend a music school for 2 years? He was only 16, but it was a dream come true. And after he finished school, he spent most of his time teaching piano lessons. When he was 23, he fell in love with a beautiful young actress named Josefina Sermakovsky. I'm sure Antoine had sparkles in his eyes as he expressed his love for the actress by writing the entire series of love songs. How romantic. Finally, in 1873, he was married to her younger sister, Anna. Not your typical romance story, but it turned out that Anna and Antoine made a wonderful couple. They eventually had 9 children. Even though Dvorak today is known as an amazing composer, that doesn't mean that everything he wrote was immediately perfect. Like most artists, he struggled to get his art just right. For example, he worked and worked and worked on writing an opera and finally gave it to the musicians to start practicing. They looked at the music, scratched their heads, and tried to play it. It just didn't work. It was too difficult. They gave the music back to him, which probably made him feel disappointed after all the hard work he had put into it. But Dvorak didn't give up. He immediately started completing and rewriting the entire opera until it worked. Like most tasks in life, it takes hard work, grit, and perseverance to achieve a goal, even when you're a brilliant composer. Dvorak also struggled with having enough money, as many artists do. Thankfully, he lived near a city that helped musicians and composers thrive, the city of Vienna. More famous composers have lived there than in any other city. The city would offer money scholarships to poor artists who demonstrated exceptional talent. Antoine applied for the scholarship. He sent in a few of the pieces he had composed. The judges looked them over and decided that he should win the scholarship. Not only did he win the scholarship, but he ended up winning the award 5 years in a row. This was great news for Antoine because that he meant that he could quit teaching piano lessons, spend all of his time writing music. As a side note, we actually know one of the people who won the scholarship. It was the composer we had just learned about last week, Johannes Brahms. Brahms and Dvorak later became lifelong friends. Things really began to slowly snowball. Festivals in London began to play Antoine to write music for their celebrations. Russia asked him if they would tour through their country. In 1891, he was invited to the United States by the National Conservatory of Music in New York to teach how to write music. It was a hard decision to make. Antoine loved being in Vienna, the capital music of the world. After much hesitation, the composer finally signed a contract for a salary that was 30 times higher than his current job. So the Dvorak family moved to New York and lived in the United States for 3 years. I bet he got a little homesick. Thankfully, one summer, they went on vacation in Iowa. There was a town named Spillville, where many descendants of the Czech immigrants lived, so the composer felt quite at home. So how many of you like fairy tales? I bet you all do. Well, towards the end of his career, Dvorak was enchanted by the folk stories of his native home, including myths and fairy tales. He wrote 4 symphonic poems, including such exciting titles as The Water Goblin, The Noon Witch, and The Golden Spinning Wheel. But today we are going to focus on a song he wrote for a specific group of musicians. The title of the piece is called Serenade for Strings. Do you think that we will have any horns in this song or strings? What about loud drums or woodwinds? Nope, it's just stringed instruments. And I'm going to tell you why. It all has to do with what a serenade was used for. Last week we listened to part of a symphony, and the week before that we also listened to a symphony. But this week we are listening to a serenade, and boy, it is a different sound. Okay, so like I said, the map is attached, so you guys go ahead and listen through the listening map, and I can't wait to hear all about how much you guys enjoy this. Okay, bye, have a good week.